Hey, Gene. Oh, yeah, I see you. Inner speak. Yeah. Let me. We're on Facebook Live. Let me just put the intro on, then I'll share out and bring you up. All right. How's it going, everybody? Second show of the day. We got four today. We got Franco D. Nicola coming up next, and I can't remember who the other one is. But anyway, we got Gene, Adrienne Miller on with us. Let me give you a little background on her. I don't usually do this, but she has a pretty cool bio. Let's see. Hmm. All right. Gene Adrian is an author, healer, teacher, and creator of Quantum Change. She's a graduate of Florida State University, BA in psychology. She also completed the University of South's four-year education for ministry program. She developed and teaches inner speak breakthrough coaching method. She offers readings, coaching, clearing sessions via phone. Tallahassee, Florida. She's written some books, and she's got two decks of activation and oracle cards. So, all right. We had Jean on last year, I believe, and then I was on her show prior to that. Let me get her up here. Hmm. There you go. You're shrouded in the violet purple flame.
Oh, there you go. And you're shrouded in a mandala. I love it.
Yeah, it's getting there. I got to fix this part, but we're doing all right. Somebody was kind enough to send us three backdrops and a stand, but I can't put the stand up here. But yeah,
Wow.
isn't that cool?
And
It's
I
a
love
community
it.
effort. It's a community effort, isn't it?
It really is, which is so amazing. Um, yeah, you're doing such great work in the world, Todd. And I mean, I appreciate it. And so does everybody else. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm only half of it. We're actually there's many, many pieces of it over Adrian.
Right.
But you've been doing this for quite some time. You didn't really give any dates on your bio, but so how long have you been in this arena? You know, which people might call ascension
Yeah.
communities or light worker communities.
Well, I guess the true answer is all my life, but I didn't really wake up until 2002. I had an enlightenment experience in 2002 that kind of knocked my socks off and opened me up to channel. And at that point, I didn't even know what channeling was. I mean, I heard this man's voice in my car. It scared the bejesus out of me. And luckily, I didn't wreck my car that day. But basically, the guy told me that I was done with everything that I had been doing in my life up to that point. And so, me being me, I started arguing with the voice. And I was like, wait a minute, don't be taking my livelihood away from me unless you've got something better. Silence. and then he repeated himself. And as a function of that, long story short, I opened a channel and I received a healing modality called InnerSpeak. It took,
Interesting.
I sat in front of a computer for 3 months and typed. And really didn't know what I was doing. I had no earthly idea that you were actually supposed to ask, wait a minute, who am I talking to here? Because nobody
You
told me the
didn't think to
rules.
ask? How long did it take you to ask?
Actually, I didn't find out until almost a year after, because I never asked, because it felt so incredibly good.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be sitting here typing and I would be bathed in this love bath,
Mm-hmm.
and the tears would flow because I'd never felt so loved in my entire life. And quite frankly, when I was done and I'd received this whole, it's a 10-pound tome of information. I was heartbroken. It's like, wait a minute, I'll never feel this again. What? I don't want to lose this, and I never did lose it, but that was my fear, that was the ego stepping in the middle of it. But yeah, that was in 2002.
Who was it?
Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
And that was the same for me. It was Archangel Michael. And a lot of people have talked about Archangel Michael or other, I don't know, what do you call these entities, consciousnesses? To me, they're more of a consciousness, or
Yeah.
I wouldn't say frequency. If I had to say it in that way, I'd have to say it's a vibration made of just a boatload of different frequencies, because they bring so much to the table. What do you think that is? Is that an energy like you or me? Or
Well,
is
let me
that
just tell you what he told me. So for a long time, after I started opening up, I began to see angels. And that was the first stuff that I started to actually see, because originally it was more of a knowing, it was more clear cognizance, I would have to say.
mm-hmm.
And then I began to open up to the other different clairs. But one day I was like sitting on my back porch meditating, and he shows up and he says, Jean, you're always telling people, well, this particular angel is here or that particular angel is here because I see this color, I see that color, I feel this feeling, blah, blah, blah. He says, do you not understand that you're all there is and we're just aspects of you?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Because I could
Yeah.
not wrap my head around that at that point.
Well, I think that's a big part of maybe a big threshold in the ascension process,
Mhm.
and I don't really hear people, like really arguing against it. It's funny how it happens to everybody. I remember when it happened to me, it was three spirit guides, and one was they were all Native American, like from a previous life, a father, an uncle, and a brother. So it was a white wolf, running bear, and white owl. And I was standing on this embankment on the bayou, and everything went gold, and I could feel something was happening. Could see all these people in front of me wearing like cloaks, and I stood up, and my body turned to a bear. I was looking at my arms, and then a wolf, and then so that's how I started to say, wait a minute, they're not outside of me, they're inside of me.
Mhm.
And so other people, it happens differently, but that's really what it is, isn't it? Because that's what my next question was going to be before you gave me that explanation was, do you think it's you, or do you think it's outside of you?
No, I don't think there's anything outside of us. And I think the biggest mistake that we make is looking for the answers outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we all do
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the ego telling you, you couldn't possibly know that. You couldn't possibly find that inside yourself. But and I really kind of think I'm getting this more and more with each day that passes, is that the more we individually model this understanding that we are all of it,
Mm-hmm.
then the more this is going to be accepted by all the other aspects of ourself, of which, I believe that you're an aspect of me and I'm an aspect of you. And when enough of us get it, then that 100th monkey thing is going to happen. And the ascension process will be moved to a higher level.
Yeah. And I think it'll definitely take on more frequencies, dimensions, whatever you want to call it. There'll be more in our field of vision, which I can see why it's not there now, because even for the best of us, we don't want to see them in front of us all the time. It's a lot, isn't it? I know people that that have very strong abilities, and they've pretty much said, hey, I've told the universe I don't want to see it this way, I don't want to see it that way, I want to see it this way, and it happens for them.
Yeah, but
But
you know what? Um, I think that a lot of it has to do with fear, and we're even though we don't want to admit that we still have fear, we do. And because the vibration of the planet has gotten high enough now that we are kind of pretty much instantly manifesting stuff.
yeah,
So that old time lag thing from 10 years ago that was a protection mechanism to keep us from creating our worst nightmare, well, it's gone now. And so we do create our worst nightmare more often than not. And if we were to accept that this is what's happening, then that means we would really have to take responsibility for
hmm,
creating the coronavirus, for creating this, that, the other stuff that's out there. Because guess what? We did it, you know?
that's right, we did it. And on one hand, it's a perfect design. You can see from a higher
Mhm.
perspective, you can see the perfection of it, the divinity of it.
Yeah.
But our job is to take that information and all that it contains, Archangel Michael, Jesus, Magdalene, whatever the energies are, dragons, and embody it. And we don't know what's going to happen with that creation, but we got to believe, just like you said, when you started to hear this voice, you never asked because you always felt so good about it. There was nothing to ask, right? Yeah. Do you feel like that Archangel Michael was a big part of your masculine inside of you?
Probably, yeah.
Hmm.
Probably because at the time that all of this happened, I was operating from my outer masculine. I was in the
Hmm.
corporate world of high tech sales. I was a woman in a sea of men, and working hard to keep up, to overcome the gender bias and the glass ceiling and, all of those different things. And I think Michael came along at the right time to show me that there's another piece of this. And that it's a blended, solid, balanced piece
Hmm.
that enables me to be able to receive and not just constantly push, 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 create, 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 that kind of thing. So yeah, I think for sure that.
So yeah, I think some people are coming into this.
Mm.
Somebody asked me or sent a note to Morgan and I, and I don't remember her name, but I appreciate the fact that she sent it. She said, could you do a show on individuals who are making the leap from the old 3D type of employment scenario to, well, the same thing that you've gone through. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are kind of getting there right now. You see more and more of it. You see more discussion, or, in the field, you see the changes in frequency of, do I charge? Do I not charge? And, all these different kind of things that, characteristics of people stepping into that. Now you're talking about, you know, he showed you another side to it where you're not forcing, is what it sounds like, and you're just kind of staying in a certain frequency and the things are coming to you. Is that a good description? And could you add anything to that?
Absolutely. Yes. And how I like to think of it is that when I'm in balance, it's like I'm standing in this shower
Hmm.
of light, love, money, good health, prosperity. I mean, whatever you want to call it, but it's a shower. And I always just, my mantra is thank you for helping me to stay in the flow, constantly stay in the flow. And I realize that, all resources are provided in that flow. It's a vertical thing. It's,
Hmm.
when you start looking for your resources out in the horizontal world, from clients, from writing books,
The
from
linear.
workshops, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
You'll get some, it'll work to a certain extent,
Mm.
but in fact, it's really funny because I was meditating last week and I got blown away again. Had been reading one of Paul Selig's books that I have read several times over, the Book of Freedom. And
Mm.
at the very end of the book, he says, he asked, or the group is the people that he channels, they ask, so what is your heart's desire? And I can't quote it exactly, but it was to the point of that you take your heart's desire, and what you're doing is you're giving your heart to the divine.
Yeah.
And the divine will then return your heart back to you enfolded with your desire. And I
Yeah.
saw myself handing my heart to the divine, and it was like a walnut. I mean, it was just a little thing in my hand, you know. And here's my heart's desire, creator. Um, thank you. And when it was returned back to me, it was freaking huge. It was
Mm,
like this giant celestite blue, huge crystalline thing.
mm.
And I would have settled for a walnut, you know?
Yeah,
Crazy
I
as
think yeah, and that's it reminds me of that meme. There's a meme with Jesus and a little kid, and the little kid's got a little teddy bear behind. No, she's got a little teddy bear in her hand,
uh,
and he's asking her for it, and he's got a bigger one behind his back.
uh-huh.
It's the same kind of thing. The over the last couple of weeks, we had a couple of healers on. One was a man, one was a woman, and they both talked about when they do healing, they don't they go into a higher dimension. I think both of them actually said sixth dimension, if I'm not mistaken. And they go into it like you would in meditation, and you just clear.
Mhm.
You go into that field, and you don't have a question, and you don't have anything. You just immerse in that infinite, reservoir, and then it comes to them. And that kind of to me kind of struck me, and what you're saying is along the same lines to me, and that is it's a different um, lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a different way of life, and you're not dealing with that horizontal line like you're talking about, that linear. You're in this other space, and everything, the whole thought, there is the thought process, all that stuff is different. And I think that's what we're kind of getting used to now,
Yeah,
because the results do come.
they absolutely
Mhm.
do. You were talking about this new paradigm of healing, and healing as a business. I kind of hate to use that word because I don't know that it really is that. But when I was in the corporate world, I was very successful. For 30 years, I made six figures plus every year. I mean, my ex-husband was a chief information officer for a Fortune 100 company, so pretty
Yeah.
high-end guy.
So he
And
did
I had
okay.
some
He did
amazing,
okay too, I guess.
uh,
I said he probably did okay too.
yeah, and I more often than not made more money than he did.
Wow.
And so when all this happened in 2002, actually that marriage lasted until 2005 and could not continue, because we were like so disparate as far as our vibration was concerned.
Mm,
But when uh, when I moved out of that marriage and started thinking about that I really needed to be doing what made my heart sing rather than what filled up my wallet. Um, and it took me almost 5 years to have the courage to make that leap. And the only thing that was stopping me was health insurance. It was like, oh my God, I can't leave a corporate job because what'll I do? I won't have any health insurance. And finally,
mm,
the universe will push you to the point where
hmm.
it really just became, I don't want to say unbearable, but it came not fun. And I finally just had to go, okay, uncle, health
Hmm.
insurance, schmealth insurance, I'm quitting. And I did. And from that point on, until I was old enough to get Medicare, I had no insurance. And did I
Yeah,
ever get sick? No.
I'm in the
Did I
same
ever
boat.
need it?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I mean, it's you're taking command of the field
Mhm.
basically, and
Yeah.
it's like, and I think that's important too, is that middle ground where we work it out, because it involves all of our multidimensionality more and more every day. It feels like it's all on track now. I mean, at least available,
Mhm.
and you have all these human aspects that kind of, some have to be released, but they're all still with you, so they're part of the alignment. So people, sometimes look at a story like yours, and they're like, oh, wow, it's just like one, one golden step in front of you after another. But there's another side to that too, and I know I don't even have to ask you this. A lot of times when these expansions come in, and they come in so many different ways, there's a little bit of a, you know, you go into the void or the abyss, or you can call it inner work or shadow work or whatever. But it's interesting how that is very much an instant manifestation now, as opposed to say a year or 2 years ago, or back when you woke up. I'm sure, like you said, 10 years. But the thing is it comes right away. And
It
it's like
does.
that. It's like that heart you're talking about. You hand this over and say, I surrender willingly. And then boom, you get
Oh
this big
yeah.
rush.
And well, the good comes, but the shadow comes with it, like you said. And I didn't realize how fast it was happening until it's
Mm,
been this last month, actually.
mm.
And let's see, 2.5 years ago, I moved down here to little old Tallahassee, which is actually where I was born and raised. And I came back here to be closer to my daughter and my granddaughter. Um, and when I left in 1970, I swore I would never set foot again in that one horse town. And here I am.
Yeah.
And this place is a mecca for healers, for alternative
Is it
different
really?
healers. Oh my gosh,
I
yes.
mean, I haven't been through there in 20 years. I might be going through there soon.
Yeah,
To
come
be
check it
checking
out.
it.
You guys always have a place to stay
But
with.
but it's Florida's like Texas, so there's like different types of cultural,
Oh yeah,
communities, and but Tallahassee's pretty much like the old South. I mean, it's
yes
like
it is.
Alabama, it's like
It's like
Georgia.
South Georgia.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch of ley lines that coincide here at a place. There's a lake kind of in the metro area called Lake Jackson, and there are Indian mounds there, and there
Mm,
are three different ley lines that cross there. And I wasn't aware of this when I was growing up, not at all.
mm.
Nobody talked about this kind of stuff back then, but there is an amazing draw for some crazy great healing modalities.
Yeah.
We've got an organization here in Tallahassee called the Healing Arts Alliance. And I lived in Atlanta for 30 years, and there was nothing like that in Atlanta. It's a directory and a website that has all the different healing modalities that are alternative listed so that anybody who wants to find a solution can find a solution, which to me that was like unheard of,
Yeah.
to have, because when I lived in Atlanta, I
Well,
used to search to find somebody to help me with whatever issue I wanted to deal with at that particular moment. So there's that. So I like to play with this stuff and go visit these different healers. And so there was a new woman in town that does cranial sacral work, and she's also a shaman. And I went to her, and boy, she just kind of blew me wide open into some stuff that I had not looked at before.
mm,
And that was on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I couldn't walk. My lower back was like seized
yeah.
up solid. And, I started trying to work on myself. My chiropractor doesn't even open until the next Tuesday. So here I am covered with salon pus, stinky patches all over my body so I can try to move, and it was an instant manifestation of the shadow stuff I hadn't wanted to deal with,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Or didn't know of,
No, I
or
didn't know about it
unconscious.
that
Yeah.
fast. Bam. And then last week, I did the same thing again. Went to a woman who in town here who does eat and energy medicine, and I had wanted to try her workout. So booked a session with her. It was a very deep and profound session about some old buried angst in my body.
Wow.
And at the end of that, oh my God, I got, I guess, what do you want to call it? Vibrational flu or food
Mm,
poisoning, one or the other. But I
mm.
spent the next 2 days in the
Purging.
bathroom,
Yeah.
you know, and I know I didn't get food poisoning.
Mm.
I
No.
know that it was my body detoxing this old toxic angst,
Yeah.
and it happened that fast, which
Yeah,
is,
we were talking about that on the previous show, but yeah, the body it's becoming very obvious that the body is running on, I mean, the link between energetic, balance or non-balance or whatever you want to call it, and the physical, symptoms in the body are it's in our face now. You know,
Oh,
it
for
really
sure,
is.
because the body's finally waking up.
Hmm.
You know, our body, in my reality, my body has a soul just like I have a soul. And my body has her own agenda, her own purpose, her own mission, and they're not always dovetailed with mine. But mostly she's been trying to wake up for the last 72 years. And you know, she's finally getting to this place now where she can get my attention pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
And it's usually through not a nice voice going, Gene, hello. If you,
It's like,
it's
get
usually
your ass in gear.
the two by
Yeah.
four up next to my head, you know. And we're trying to work out a deal where we're not going to do that to each other anymore, but we haven't
Yeah.
quite yet, apparently.
Yeah, we got one like that 6 weeks ago, and we both got it. We're like, okay, it's it. You know, like it's, and around that time, Morgan had pulled down that all the bodies had aligned,
Hmm.
like all the stuff that we got out here, and all the different layers of the body from the cosmos to had aligned, and now it was the body itself
Yeah.
that had to align.
Right.
And so if you think about it, I mean, that makes total sense. Embodiment, all of this information out there this is now, we're creating from that plus our experience. So that makes total sense to me. And then if you look at what you were talking about with Archangel Michael and what he told you, uh, it would only make sense that it would work the same way.
Yeah.
Like you said, I like what you said. The soul has a body. You have I mean, yeah, the body is a soul, and so on and so on and so on.
Mhm.
So it's
Every
all like
cell in your
the
body has
same,
a soul.
huh?
Every cell in your body has a
Yeah,
soul.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. This is
I
a
mean, like,
holographic universe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And, you know,
so we
the
pull from all of
unfortunate
that.
thing is that all these other bodies that came into alignment, well, they're just light. So they
Yeah,
can pop into alignment really fast. But the physical body has density involved with that,
yeah.
and it doesn't move quite that fast. So it
Mm-mm.
literally lags a little bit behind, which is why that reentry or that alignment can be more
Yeah,
rough on the physical plane than it is for all those others to come into being, I think.
yeah. And it's come up on the show the last few days. And I mentioned it again now. Somebody said, "Hey, our body today couldn't even be here in 5 years,
Oh, yeah.
like because everything." Yeah. So, and it is the body's time. I mean, I'm feeling it in my body. I know from what's happening, and I know like every morning, I'm draining metal out.
Mhm.
Refuge, whatever you want to call it, this old DNA or whatever programming or whatever it is, but it's coming out in a physical way.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
different than you're purging. Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say this too about what you said. It's really interesting because there's so many healers that I've asked myself, well, what are we going to do with that? If it's ultimately physician heal thyself, and we do everything ourselves. But I kind of got something when you were telling your story about those two healers. You're basically going to these people and you're opening your field with them. There's a merging and exchange of information taking place.
Yes.
So you're actually initiating uh really some confronting stuff
Mhm.
that by now you've got it figured out. If they're a good healer and you've got a good rapport, there's something's going to come out of it. So you're taking a conscious step to accelerating that, and that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And that's the intention that I always put out there whenever I do work with somebody else, is that my intention is that they have a piece of information that I'm not aware of that is going to help me
Yeah.
ratchet this thing up.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing it. And,
No, that's
and
and
it
and
works.
and some people and I okay, so I've done this for whatever, over 2 years at 18, almost 1800 shows, and you can see the change by the conversations, what's happening, because we're just a micro of the whole thing. So one of the things that's occurred, like say over certainly this year, but over the last certainly the last few weeks, healers talking about how they are affected when they are the practitioner, and there's an experience such as the ones you're describing. They're actually getting something out of it. you
Oh,
know. And I
absolutely.
and I remember talking to one, and she said I went down for 2 days because like this, the client got all this information, and I got all this stuff came in, and I had to lay on my, be on my back for 2 days.
My
Yeah,
experience is a little bit different when I'm doing my work with clients. I know that every time I work with a client, they're bringing me some aspect of me on a platter to heal.
yeah,
But it doesn't lay me out, and it doesn't lay them out. But I think that has to do with the energy of InnerSpeak and the intention that I set when I was receiving it. Because when it started coming in, I kind of again argued with spirit, but I
yeah,
was like, whoa, baby, if this is going to cause healing crisis, drama, and trauma in a person's life, I'm not your girl. Go find somebody else to bring
yeah,
it in. I'm not going to be party to that.
yeah,
So we sort of
absolutely.
the deal that in a session we'll go as far as we can go, and if we did like one more little thing, it would create a healing crisis. We
Yeah.
stop here, and there's a very firm indication that comes up in the session for that. So more often than not, none of my clients get healing crisis out of the work, nor do I. But
So
boy,
he,
when I go work with
so
somebody else, uh-huh.
yeah, so that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, so because we've worked with people before, and I can remember we worked with one friend, and we worked for 3 weeks. I mean, every day,
Mhm.
and it was powerful. And she got to a certain point, to a certain thing that she couldn't clear, like it
Mhm.
was obvious, and it just all ended, and it was okay. I mean, I'm just saying, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, But like when you say a healing crisis, to me, that's kind of the energy that I picked up, was like it would be something very dramatic, very 3D,
Mhm.
very egoic, whatever, very wounded. Um, so
2 days
you
worth of
actually,
purging, that's a healing crisis.
I thought that
Back
was
locked up.
normal.
That's a
Well, then
healing
I
crisis.
then I have them all the time. So I must be doing something wrong.
No, 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 you're doing
I
something
thought that
right.
was,
You're just moving
I
through
thought that
it
was
a little
just
bit
normal.
faster than
I
your
thought,
body can handle.
yeah, true, true. But I think we're being pushed too.
Oh, yeah, for
I
sure
mean,
that.
it's like we're right in step with it. It's like, what have you done for me lately? Well, you were in the corporate world. So
Oh,
that's what the
yeah,
universe is like. What have you done for me lately?
yeah.
And I have a feeling it's because of the time and space we live in. Like this is really happening. I mean, this ascension is all the way around. It's not just us, it's everything. And somehow or another, it's connected to what we do with it,
Yeah.
like how far we take it, you know?
It's like artificial intelligence. It's learning as we learn, it's growing as we grow, and it's all tied together.
Yeah, no doubt. So inner speak. Can you give me like a generalization of inner speak?
Yeah, it's a language of the soul, because our soul's talking to us all the time. And if we knew the language, we would never need another healer. We would just be
Mm,
constantly raising our conscious, growing and receiving, and everything in life would be wonderful. But we don't know the language. So we either assume that that monkey chatter in our head that's trying to tell us what to do, like, don't eat that candy bar, you're gonna be sorry if you
You don't look good today.
yeah, right, all that stuff. And if we knew that language and we could listen to it, then we wouldn't be creating problems and wounds inside our bodies. And the issue is the physical body is listening all the time when
Hmm.
everybody else is talking, and you might not hear it, but your body does. Your body's got a choice with every piece of information that it hears or intuits or sees through six dimensions, or through six senses,
Hmm.
that it can either accept it and go, oh, okay, well, Todd, that's your opinion, not mine.
Hmm.
Or it can say, whew, you were mean to me, you hurt my feelings, and I'm going to hang on to that wound until the cows come home. And,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
so
right.
these are the things that have happened over incarnations. And so basically what InnerSpeak does is it takes the client back to the very original point of creation, where they
Mhm.
stored something that they shouldn't have stored in their body, in their field,
The
and
point, the point
allow,
of that, yeah, the point of that energy
yeah, where it
restricting or
got
whatever.
hardened and stuck.
Yeah.
And you have to go there. You can't fix it in the present moment. You got to go back to where you made the
Yeah.
mess and clean the mess up there.
Yeah.
And so that's what this does. And so that point of creation might be earlier in the present lifetime. It might be something that you inherited, brought into your DNA from an ancestor. It might be something from another lifetime, past, present, or future, because there's no such thing as time. Or it could just be something that you picked up, walking through the mall and you got,
Mhm.
oh, I think I'll take that. That's not my job, but I take it anyway, that kind of thing. And so you go to that point of creation, you get the story around it, and then you use that story as a reference to clear away whatever the
Mhm.
debris is, so that you can go free without that anymore.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, Morgan does some stuff similar to that,
Mhm.
and it's interesting too because as I look at all this, and then being married to a practitioner, and then talking to practitioners, and then my own experience, I look at, I'm like, it's almost like the universe is waiting for you to become aware.
Yeah.
Like if you take the pain out of it and the suffering and our stories and just really get present and go, wait a minute, if this is a game, you know, the information's right there. It's everywhere. It's in every single thing. And so how can I enjoy this? How can I flow into this? And it's along the lines, I think, getting to the point now, because we are seeing things from a higher perspective that's being embodied, that we're able to go without, the pain and without the second guessing, uh, do things like you. In other words, seek that awareness, like, because everything isn't just totally understandable as it's coming in, or we would be all, walking
Right.
on water. But to go out and make those steps and really willingly surrender and make those steps, we're starting to understand brings immediate, that's instant manifestation,
Oh,
because
it
that
is. I mean,
generates abundance on all aspects.
because we're the ones that block the abundance, and we're the ones that can open the door to it. I know that when something will happen, that I've had some sort of a thought at a subconscious level, because I wouldn't do this consciously, that has blocked my flow. And for some reason, clients aren't booking sessions with me or whatever. And I'm starting to look at my bank account and it's dwindling. And I was, okay, wait a minute, what have I done to block? And so I'll pull out my Inner Speak book and I'll work on myself. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time I can finish a session, almost inevitably, Todd, either my phone rings or I've got email requests that pop in
Mm-hmm.
when I get back on the computer of people wanting sessions.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was just go locate the block and heal it, let it go, and move on. And then the flow opens back up.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, because I mean, Morgan's pointed that out with Soulogy many times. And at first, I kind of like, we got to go do this, we got to go do that. But this is actually a good description of what we were just talking about. What does that look like at the human level? And that's really what it is.
Mhm.
Everything, everything that's going on, you take responsibility for, and you go into yourself and you ask the question, or you know, utilize your own modality or process or whatever the case is. Uh, that's what you do. You don't externalize any of it. And so to me, what I started to notice, a couple of months ago was awareness. Like Morgan always said, awareness is the first step to transformation.
Mhm.
And I started to know notice at least some of the time, a significant amount of the time. Once I became aware of something, it was cleared.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the
Exactly.
deep stuff, but you could actually see, oh, I just figured that out, and snap, you're done.
Mhm.
It's weird.
Well, and that happened to a client of mine yesterday, actually. We had hardly begun in the session, and all of a sudden, his awareness was able to encapsulate whatever it was that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Oh, well, that just shifted it, and I feel fine now."
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't
Mm-hmm.
even finished the session. We did go on and finish the session, and we were able to clear away more layers than that. But the immediate relief that he got was just that awareness thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
that this awareness piece is really important. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I'm seeing as a common line between so many people has to do with empathing and taking on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
We used to consider empaths, they were this little group of people of which most of us healers, we were one, but it was like, okay, there are these folks, and then there's everybody else. But what I'm really finding now is that we're really all wide open, and we're really all empathing other people's stuff all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. And it's really important for us to all become aware that it's not our job to run anybody else's stuff. You can't fix somebody else, because when you do, that's enabling them and pushing their lesson farther away, which we wouldn't want to do. That
Well,
kind
it's
of
disempowering too. It's
Oh, yeah, for
disempowering.
sure. For sure.
You
It's so
know,
codependent.
yeah,
And that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing lately, is that as we're growing on this ascension path, we're tending to subconsciously take on a lot of other people that are running the same kind of thing that we
yeah,
are.
yeah.
And we don't do it consciously, for sure. And we've got to catch that and become aware of it before it makes us individually sick.
Yeah. And I think it's part of the process where, you see people going, okay, I'm just going to block them. You're not in my life. That energy, speaking to energy. But it's the beauty about what you're doing and saying and what people are starting to do is, yes, it's not them, it's me,
Right.
right? I'm engaging that. I look at it like the old codependent relationship or codependent
What
frequency.
it is.
And we were just talking about this yesterday because it was like, okay, somebody needs help. We're really not in a situation to help anyone. But what do you do? And what if you are in that situation? Uh, you know, there's certain things that are happening, and I would have to say every gateway, every threshold at a minimum, where we've got to do it on our own. Energetically, we've got to do it on our own. And whatever that looks like in the physical can look, very much two different extremes and everything in between. But yeah, I agree with you. It's part of the wounded healer frequency, the yogi guru frequency falling in, because it the old way, and there's okay because it got us here, feeds disempowerment, and it feeds separation because they're not equal. One's being healed and one's a healer. But there is a way, and I think people like you are doing it, that you can actually heal in this new frequency or new earth or whatever you want to call it. And it's an equality. There is an equilibrium. There is a equal exchange, and it's not just money. It's energetic.
It's
You know.
energetic. And that's the thing. I have a theory that all anybody wants or needs from anybody else is strictly information. They
Yeah.
Another person just needs to know the
Yes.
information that I might have or that you might have that will help them to
Yeah.
master a spiritual lesson. And so if we can take time, actually dedicate some time every day to asking that our higher self deliver energetic information that we have that others need to the appropriate person in the appropriate dimension where they can accept it, and then just let it go. You don't have to know what it is. You don't have to be actually involved in it. It's
Yeah.
almost like lobbing a tennis ball over a net. You just let your higher self throw out those tennis balls and allow the person on the other side of the net to catch them as they need them.
Yeah.
And just by
And
setting that intention that you're doing that every day, you're helping every soul on this planet, or all the expressions of us that there are.
that's right. Is my mic cracking?
A little bit, yeah.
It is. God dang it. I thought I had it fixed.
Yeah, in fact, I'm gonna plug my Mac in because I'm noticing that my power was dropping.
All right, hang on. Oh,
Mm.
wait a minute.
Okay, now you're clear.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. Dr. Joe. He's always telling me what I'm doing wrong.
Oh. What? Aren't you lucky to have somebody who's got your back?
Yes, absolutely. He loves it.
Great. Yeah.
So do you got anything coming up? You got anything going on?
Yeah,
About
thank you for asking. So, yeah, I do. The last week of May, I am going to be taking a group of people to England. It's the retreat is called Fill Your Chalice, and the
Mhm.
website for it is fillyourchalice.com. And basically, what we're going to do is find the alchemical marriage of the divine masculine and the divine feminine through visiting sacred sites and aligning with the energy there and doing
Mm.
ceremony. So it's about opening the heart of the priest and the priestess, and doing this alchemical conjunctio divine marriage. And we're
Mm.
going to be doing that at Stonehenge, Glastonbury, the Well and the Tor, and then we're going down to Tintagel and do high ceremony in Merlin's Cave.
Wow.
Yeah,
Merlin has a cave?
yeah, that's where he lived back in the day.
Man, I want to go see that
Well,
place.
come
We got to
on,
look.
you and Morgan should come. It's the
We
last
will in time.
day.
In time. We're getting closer to being freeing up everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
So there's
so you should look up Amanda Lawrence when you go to the tour.
okay.
I've sent a few people. I know she's connected with a few people.
Amanda Lawrence.
Yeah, Amanda Lawrence, Lorence.
Lorence. Okay.
Yeah, just hit me up and I'll. Yeah. So now, have you done this kind of stuff often, where you go to? No, so you've never done
No,
it.
I've never done this before. I mean, I travel internationally to
Yeah.
teach my work. I'm headed to Turkey in a month, and
Yeah.
I'll be in Izmir, Turkey,
Oh,
teaching InnerSpeak. But no, this is my first time to do any kind of a retreat like this. And I got the message loud and clear that it was time for me to do this. I actually have written a book. I'm needing to find myself an agent or a publisher for this book. It's the first fiction book that I've ever written. It's called Conjunctio, and it's about high alchemy and the
mm,
divine marriage, but it's a romance novel.
cool.
It's a sexy romance novel, and I've
It's
never done
sexy.
anything like that
Is it
before.
erotic? I'm just
A
kidding.
little bit. It's about as erotic as I could deal with. I'm a little, born in the
Well,
South,
you
conservative.
had to finish the book.
Well,
You could
yeah,
you could have got lost in the story, end up with
that's true.
50 shades of 5D gray.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, no.
So so you go to around the world and you speak and do
I teach
presentations.
InnerSpeak. That's what I do. I carry
Wow,
my
that's
book
cool.
and go
So,
teach
and
and
how
train.
many different? I'm just curious, because Turkey. I mean, that's just like I know Marie Batchelor just goes to Korea. She's gone to Korea a
Uh-huh.
couple of times. I know other people that like they're like in demand in other places. Judith Kuzel's coming to the States for the first time. She's going to go to Sedona and Shasta and do a couple of things like that. But how many other countries have you been to doing that kind of stuff? And
Um,
how long
see,
have you been doing that?
since 2002.
Wow.
Yeah. But I've got pockets of people in
Mm,
England, France, Belgium, Holland, um, Mexico, the United States, and Turkey. And
wow.
Turkey, this is like crazy good, but I've got over 1,000 people in Turkey who do my work, and over
Mm.
300 people in Turkey who teach my work.
It's like say Course in Miracles. Like I mean, I don't mean it's exactly like it, but I mean
Right.
it's like there's a fundamental program. What is that? It's like a cross between, in the old terms, religion, philosophy, uh, Zen. Like way of life. That's kind of cool. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Now you've been doing this quite a while, but like I said, Judith's coming to the States. I know other people that are doing it. I think we're probably going to see more and more of that,
Mhm.
because I think when it gets right down to it, like you said, you're basically showing up to exchange code, see what
Yes.
code's available. You're
Yeah.
gaining from it and they're gaining from it. That's very cool.
Exactly. And a lot of it is it's completing circles. The first time I went to Turkey, which was probably 8 or 9 years ago,
Mm.
as I was flying from Brussels to Istanbul, I heard that voice, the one that talks to me, and it said, you're going here to complete a circle. I have a feeling
Mm.
that I I spent a lot of time probably in Turkey in other lifetimes.
Yeah.
And I'm going there to clean up some karma, to anchor some energy. I have not any idea specifically what all it means, but I keep going back. For many
Yeah.
years, I had to go to the Yucatan. I would go 2 to 3 times a year to an area in the Yucatan. It's a temple that's not that well known called Ekbalam, the Temple of the Black Jaguar, and I have some ancient history with that one as well in the Mayan people. And I would have to go and have to go and have to go. And then one time I went and I was like, okay, you're done. You don't have to come back. And so I've been back there since.
I
So
think
right
there's a lot.
now,
Yeah.
Turkey,
I think that Rick Jewers is doing that right now.
Mhm.
He's all over Europe. I think he's in Egypt and he was in Israel. Obviously Morgan and I have been around the states. I think 22 states, something like that. But there's something to be said for that. It's like you're going back and retracing. Like we've been to Arkansas 3 times. Like why have we been to Arkansas 3 times? You know what I mean? I mean, it's
Oh
just
yeah, exactly.
there's
You know,
something going down with that. Almost like we're flipping switches, lighting up the grid. People call
for
it grid
sure.
work, that type of thing. But I
Yeah,
think
it
more
used
more
to
of that's
be,
happening.
especially when I was in the corporate world, I would be sent places on what anybody else would call it a wild goose chase.
Hmm.
My inside sales rep would book me an appointment in the middle of nowhere. And I would go there. One example, there's a place called Enon, Ohio, and it's the call center for a chain of gas stations called Speedway North American. And at the time, I was selling headsets into
Hmm.
call centers. And I go there and I figured this town is like 500 people. I wasn't going to have any trouble at all finding the headquarters of Speedway North America because there wasn't going to be anything there but a traffic light, right? Well, I get there and I couldn't find it. So I had to pull off the road and I turned down a one-way street and into the parking lot of a library, booted up my computer and got the address, got the phone number and called. And I said, called the guy that I was supposed to have the appointment with. His voicemail said, "I'm sorry, I'm not here today. But if you need some help, hang up and call back and ask for Rachel, my assistant, and she'll help you." So I took that number, called back, got Rachel, and I said, I'm supposed to have an appointment with John Doe. And she said, "Well, he's got the flu. He called in sick this morning." And I
Hmm.
said, "Well, can I meet with you? I just need to see your call center and get some information." She said, "Lady, I don't have a clue what he does. You'd be wasting my time and his time. So, and my time and your time." So I was like, okay. So I backed my car out of the library parking lot and I had to turn to the right away from the highway because it was a one-way street. And at the end of the road, I noticed this thing that looked like a giant, 150 foot tall, upside down ice cream cone. It was a conical Indian mound, the
Wow.
largest one east of the Rockies. And I'm looking at this thing. It's got a white picket fence around it. The road goes all the way around it. And I just drove around this thing 3 times looking at it, going, well, isn't that interesting? And drove back to Cincinnati because that was the closest airport, got on a flight and came home. Um,
See, you activated something.
I activated something. I have no idea what it was. But one time, Steve Rother, I used to speak at his events, and he had invited me to speak at an event at Big Bear Lake. And you can't get there from Atlanta, which is where I was living at the time. You can fly to LA, take a bus, rent a car, or whatever. And I thought to myself, maybe it would be nice to drive, but there's a whole bunch of stuff on my bucket list between Atlanta and Big Bear Lake, the first place of which was in Arkansas.
Hmm.
And so I headed out, started driving west, and the first night got to Mount Ida, Arkansas, which is on,
Mount Ida.
yeah, the largest crystal basin
Yeah.
or whatever in the world. And so I dug for quartz crystals there. And then I went to Fort Smith and spent the night and then drove to Albuquerque and spent the night there, got up and went to Chaco Canyon. And then I went to Winslow, Arizona, because I had to stand on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Was it what year was this? Was this
It was
before you?
probably 2000 and 7, 8, something like
Oh
that.
yeah. So you were already into it. You were doing both.
Oh, big time, yeah. And recognized.
I
Otherwise,
think I think a lot of people start. Well, it's happening. You see it happening all the time. People going to the craziest places. I mean,
yeah.
Vera and Augusti are from the Netherlands and Spain. They've been together like a couple of years, and they've been to Brazil. Now they're in Colorado, Utah. You know, it's like people are just picking up and going.
Well,
Yeah.
and I know I was anchoring light in Mount Ida, Arkansas, in Chaco Canyon, because I had to be Chaco Canyon full on the solstice. And so I got up at like 4 a.m. and drove to Chaco Canyon. And I was able, out of one side of the car, I got the sun setting. On the other side of the car, I got the sun rising. And did ceremony at Chaco Canyon, talked to the stone people, and then headed on
This
west.
shift's getting real.
It is. It
I
is.
mean, you know, what to me, what would be a big piece of evidence would be these types of conversations being had and being part of mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's not science, it's not spiritual, it's all of it.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, whether you're talking about elders that you're talking to, ancestors, or elementals, or, you know, a Sasquatch, the elders, or
Yep.
fairies, or galactics. I mean, these things they're more real than anything that's put out there. You know what I mean?
Rod, it is my mainstream. It is your mainstream.
It is. You're damn
And
right it is. Yeah.
that means it is mainstream.
True. That's
We got
true.
to own it.
That's true. Yeah. Touche. That's a good point. Very good point. That's
Yeah.
right. That's really the gist of what you and I talked about in the first 30, 40 minutes, really. It's a lifestyle.
Mhm.
And you're right. You do have to own it. Own this shift.
Yeah,
Hashtag own this shift.
right. And if people don't want to be part of our reality, then bye.
Well, and they're here to do the same thing we are. And that's what I was getting last night. Like, you know what? Even in that space that I left, let's just say we all have,
Right.
there's proportionate to the dimension, if you want to put it that way, or proportionate to the timeline. There's just as many people that are doing what you're doing, or I'm doing, or this way, that way. You know, it's all, you know, from a higher perspective, it's all perfect.
Well, it's all anchoring energy of some sort. So the
Yeah.
people who are anchoring 3D energy, they're keeping the rest of us from floating off the planet.
Well,
It's
either
a
that or
balance
they'll
of scripts.
either that or there'll be two different realities that we
Well,
don't
I
even.
think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think so
Because
too.
most of the people that I know, that I knew in times past, that are still mired in 3D reality, I don't know them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
it's weird. It's part of it, letting
mhm,
go.
yeah.
Well, I look forward to the next time. If we go through Tallahassee, I'll give you a call, have some
Oh,
coffee.
please do, because you've always got a place to stay here. Have
I
a
don't,
guest room, private bath.
oh
And,
yeah.
oh yeah.
Well, I'll have to look at the map. You said it was southern Georgia. Is it that close to the Georgia line?
It's 25 miles away from the Georgia line.
Okay.
It's halfway between Pensacola and Jacksonville on I-10.
Okay. I got you. All right. That sounds good. You take care.
Thank you for
Thank you
having me
for all
on.
you're doing. Best to you and yours. All
Okay, and
blessings.
love to Morgan.
All right. You take care.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.